The request came out of nowhere, soft and desperate, on a bright afternoon when the city looked too beautiful to hide any pain. The sun spilled over cafe windows and polished sidewalks when she stopped in front of him, breath unsteady, eyes filled with a fear that didn't belong to daylight. She asked a complete stranger to pretend to be her date for one single evening, as if asking for a glass of water while drowning. And in that moment, neither of them knew that this small, impulsive plea would quietly change the direction of two very different lives. If you believe that kindness still matters, that strangers can become miracles, take a moment right now to like, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel Midnight Tales. Your support keeps stories like this alive. Her name was Aria Monroe, and she hadn't planned on asking anyone for help that day. She had dressed carefully that morning, choosing a soft pink dress and a light jacket, telling herself it was just another normal day, just another step forward. But normal had become fragile since her mother's hospital bills started piling up, and her confidence had been shaken by a recent breakup that left her questioning her worth. She had promised herself she would attend an evening charity event where her ex and his judgmental circle would be present, an event that mattered for her career and her mother's future. Walking in alone felt impossible, like walking into a courtroom already declared guilty. The stranger she approached was sitting on a bench outside a cafe, dressed neatly but without the loud arrogance she expected from wealthy men. He held a coffee cup loosely, eyes thoughtful, posture calm, as if the world wasn't constantly demanding pieces of him. His name was Elias Carter, though she didn't know it then. To her, he was just a man who looked steady enough to lean on, even for a moment. When she made her strange request, her hands trembled, and she hated herself for needing help. She expected rejection, laughter, maybe suspicion. Instead, she found quiet attention and an unexpected gentleness in his expression. Elias had spent years being surrounded by people who wanted something from him, but none of them had ever asked for something so simple, so human. He was the CEO of a rapidly growing tech firm, a man whose schedule was measured in minutes and whose life was built on decisions that affected thousands. Yet sitting there in the afternoon sun, he felt strangely invisible, relieved to be seen as just a person. He agreed, not out of obligation, but because something in her fear reminded him of a version of himself he had buried long ago, before success hardened him. They spent the rest of the day together, preparing for an evening that suddenly felt heavier than a performance. They walked through busy streets, sharing small, ordinary moments, buying coffee, laughing softly at trivial things, practicing smiles that felt real enough to fool the world. Aria found herself relaxing, her shoulders lowering, her thoughts slowing. Elias noticed how she apologized for things that weren't her fault, how she carried strength quietly, like a secret she didn't believe in anymore. Without realizing it, both of them began to forget they were pretending. As the afternoon faded into early evening, the challenge became clearer. The event was more than just a social gathering. It was a test. Aria faced the ghosts of rejection, whispers of judgment, and the fear that she would once again feel small. Elias, though powerful in boardrooms, felt oddly vulnerable stepping into a role that required emotional honesty rather than control. He had built walls to survive success, but standing beside her, he felt those walls weaken. At the event, sunlight still lingered through tall windows, illuminating faces that turned to look at them. Aria felt every glance like a question, but Elias's calm presence anchored her. He stood beside her with quiet confidence, not performing, not exaggerating, simply existing as someone who chose her company. Slowly, her posture changed. Her smile stopped being forced. The room no longer felt like an enemy territory, but a place she could breathe in. What neither of them expected was how much truth could exist inside a lie. As the evening unfolded, Aria realized she was being seen not as someone abandoned or pitied, but as someone valued. Elias in turn realized how long it had been since he felt genuinely useful in a way that had nothing to do with money or power. Watching her regain confidence reminded him that success meant very little if it couldn't be shared with compassion. The turning point came quietly, without drama. Aria overheard her ex speaking carelessly, his words sharp and dismissive, and felt the old ache rise again. But this time it didn't consume her. She understood something new. Her worth was not defined by who stayed or who left. Elias noticed the shift before she said a word. It was in the way she lifted her chin, the way she no longer shrank from the room. In that moment, he felt an unfamiliar warmth, a connection rooted not in fantasy, but in mutual respect. As the event ended and the city lights replaced the sun, they stepped outside together, the day finally releasing its hold. The pretense had done its job, but neither of them was ready to let go of what had grown between them. Aria felt gratitude so deep it scared her. Elias felt something even more unsettling. Hope. Not the ambitious kind tied to growth charts and forecasts, but the quiet hope that maybe life could still surprise him. Before they parted, Aria stood under the soft glow of streetlights and allowed herself to feel proud. She had faced her fear, accepted help, and discovered strength she thought she had lost. Elias watched her walk away and realized that for the first time in years, he didn't feel alone in a crowd of success. He had met someone who reminded him why kindness mattered, why slowing down could be an act of courage. If this story touched your heart even a little, please take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe to Midnight Tales. Your engagement helps keep these emotional journeys alive and reaching others who might need them. And before this story ends, leave a comment below sharing whether you believe one small act of kindness can change a life. Because sometimes in the middle of an ordinary day, a simple request from a stranger can open a door to healing, connection, and a future neither person ever planned, but both were quietly waiting for.